Well, hi, this is John Kinzer and Faith, Culture, and Society. This is Series 3, Session 7. And in one of our previous studies, Andrew Johnson, the president, Andrew Johnson, the embattled president, with stubborn determination, he refused to leave his office dominated by Congress, who wanted to punish the southern states for the Civil War. In this session, we look at another president. Years later, Theodore Roosevelt, 1901 to 1909. Amazingly, this young president, he was the youngest president to enter that office. He was 42 years old. Teddy Roosevelt's family and his personal choices really helped him become president. And he was able to correct some of the economic problems in businesses, monopolies. He expanded conservation of our natural resources in the United States, stewardship of public lands, and he grew the United States, the military and the Navy, into the start of the 20th century. Well, Teddy Roosevelt had a serious asthma problem as a child. His parents desired him to overcome that. They taught him how to exercise. Even as a young child, they took him on walks. He went walking and began to really enjoy nature. He took many nature walks through New York State. Here again, we see God's finger in his life, touching him and giving him an interest in nature. In 1876, at the age of 18, he entered Harvard College there in Massachusetts. He often insisted on running from place to place rather than walking. It was better exercise for him. Here in college, he became a very good debater. His father also built a gymnasium onto their house so he could practice and exercise when the weather was bad outside. So all through college, he exercised. He became a very good debater as well at Harvard. And then he chose to focus on a sport. Guess what he picked? Boxing. He became a boxer and joined the boxing team at Harvard. You would never guess he suffered from asthma. He was particularly interested at Harvard in politics, government, and the Navy. Later in life, he said this. He says, a knowledge of the Bible, a thorough knowledge of the Bible, is worth more than a college education, unquote. While he attended Harvard, his dad died. Teddy lamented the loss of his father. He said his father was, quote, the most wise and loving father that ever lived. I owe everything to him, unquote. After college, young Roosevelt ran for election in the New York legislature and won. He was known for his honesty, his fair play. He stood for competition between business. He believed in limiting monopolies, businesses that got a corner, that had a dominance on a particular product. In 1883, he traveled west to the Dakota Territory. His health improved in the West with its dry, clean air, and he built a ranch. And for 2 years, he lived the life of a cowboy. He saw this period as crucial in his life. In 1897, Roosevelt was chosen as the Assistant Secretary of the Navy. This began a big 2-year time in his life. In fact, in 1898, the next year, the U.S. warship, the USS Maine, blew up in Cuba. Newspapers said the attack was by Spain, that Americans should be stirred up and should go to war against Spain for the sinking of this ship. Roosevelt left the Navy and he went to Texas to raise a cavalry regiment to fight in this war, the Spanish-American War. And in a battle at San Juan Hill in Cuba, Roosevelt and his men got off their horses, charged up a hill at a position held by Spanish troops, drove the troops off the hill, off a second hill, and won the battle. Later, he received the Medal of Honor for his valor. He was now a famous figure, and the Republican Party attracted him back into politics. In 1898, he ran for the New York governor and won the election. What an eventful 2 years in his life. We see the finger of God again. He was catapulted into politics, into office. Well, in 1900, he was picked as the vice presidential candidate. He was an energetic speaker. He gave hundreds of speeches, and he met thousands of people as he crisscrossed across the United States in that election season. The McKinley-Roosevelt ticket was elected, and Teddy Roosevelt became vice president. Only 6 months later, though, President McKinley was assassinated, another president who had been shot in New York. And Teddy Roosevelt now became president at 42. It was 1901. Roosevelt became famous as president for his bully pulpit. He used his influence to speak, his effective speaking skills to get people involved, to take action. He wanted to reform the nation. He wanted to stop the growth of huge corporations and trusts that he believed hurt small businesses and individual opportunity. He was untiring as he broke up monopolies, and he was successful in breaking up the huge railroad trust called the Northern Securities Trust. He advised others, and he would say, "Speak softly and carry a big stick." That was his advice to people. This became his slogan as he pushed his policies and involved the United States government in many new areas. Roosevelt called himself a progressive. He expanded the role of the national government into conservation. During his presidency, 5 national parks and 16 national monuments were set up, as well as starting the Forest Service to manage America's forests. He was an active president. He called for the construction of the Panama Canal, linking the Pacific and the Atlantic, to shorten the trip that a ship would have to go around South America to reach the West Coast or to reach the East Coast of America. He was the first president to be awarded a Nobel Peace Prize for bringing a peace treaty to Japan and Russia. He was the first president to ride in an automobile, the first president to ride in a submarine. He was adventurous. He was bold. He said this, "My great joy and glory is in occupying this exalted position in the nation. I am enabled to preach the practical moralities of the Bible to my countrymen and to hold up Christ as the hope and Savior of the world." So what are we to think of Teddy Roosevelt, this sickly boy who trained himself in a gym, who became a boxer on a college team, a progressive president, launched his own political party, expanded the reach of the government into conservation and expanding the Navy, an energetic, far-sighted man who even saw a need for the Panama Canal? What are we to think of him? God using him, giving him vision, energy to push the United States to become a stronger nation and a force for good, promoting freedom, opportunity among the nations. He had learned self-government early on. I think that's the message of Teddy Roosevelt. Self-government, controlling, directing, restraining yourself. He did this all through his life. This self-government is the lesson of Roosevelt's life. God bless you as you continue your study. Thank you for listening.